The wiring harness for this dual steering, it's a Dark Soul dual steering. Check out this wiring harness. Now, if the wiring harness the Dark Soul sent was exactly like their schematic shows, this would be a very simple setup, but it's not. So it's kind of a trial and error. Unfortunately, with trial and error and electricity, you have a tendency to burn your servos up before you even get started. However, that's just the way it is, basically. I don't know what else to say. I mean, Dark Soul did a great job. I think they're a little bit expensive on their bracket. I mean, $127 for a electrical harness and this bracket right here, and a couple of horns for the servos. That's way out of line. So anyway, it's a good idea and all, but what I did was I took their harness, which I had to modify to actually modify. I didn't really have to modify it. I had to trace out the wires to really make sure they were going to the right place and understand the logic, because like they say on their instructions, this is a area bracket, by the way, and it's much better. It actually lets you carry the battery, the throttle servo, the receiver box, which is really nice, and then your two servos in here with an extra bracket in case the servos aren't the same size as the ones that came off. So basically, you can use either servo. You can use the stock Losi 5 servo or the aftermarket, which is, I've got the aftermarket. But it's that's the easy part to figure out. The hard part is this harness if you're not an electrician, and I'm not an electrician. I wanted that I wanted this electrical diagram to give me directions how to do it. And it does, but it doesn't. It does in that if all these wires were in the place that they claim they are, it would be perfect. But so whoever put the tape on them basically and wired them together didn't wire them the way this diagram shows. So you have some of these that are on the right over on the left side, and it throws you off. It really does, because you're not plugging this piece of paper into the wires. You're plugging the wiring harness they sent into your servos and your battery and that. So anyway, my opinion on the Dark Soul all around is it's poor as compared to what else is out there on the market. It's the only wiring harness you can get, though. Now, why do you need a wiring harness? Why don't you just get a Y and hook up a Y to your servo, your steering servos? Because you're using two of them now as opposed to one. Because a Y would take all that juice from the battery and shove it right over to your servos and vice versa. I think it's the vice versa that's the hard part. Both servos would be trying to draw all that power to run them through the receiver, and the receiver can't handle it. So what that wiring harness does is it takes just an electrical source and puts it to the servo, so the servo will function, and the brains portion only goes to the receiver. So there's why you need the wiring harness and not just a Y, because a Y would destroy your receiver. So anyway, you need a harness. But as far as a bracket goes, Dark Soul is not the one to get, because you got to cut up your own battery box, and you know what I mean. Come on, that's, you know, I'm an Okie, and that's too Okie for me. So, and if you buy these from overseas, like I bought this one, it's $133, as opposed to buying this very same one right here from the United States, like DDM or somebody like that. Shit, it's $250. So buy it direct. And you know what? It didn't take any longer than buying anything else off of eBay or whatever. I bought it. I got it 2 weeks later. And the guy even emailed me a couple times to assure me that it was on track. So there you go. There's my opinion on the Dark Soul dual steering setup. You need the harness, and unfortunately they're the only ones out there selling a harness right now that I know of. But the bracket, leave that Dark Soul bracket at home. Spend $133, get you a real good aluminum bracket, and then go ahead and buy the $17 or $21 harness from Dark Soul. And then send me an email when you get it if it's not built like mine wasn't, if it's not built correct according to the diagram, and I'll talk to you about it. All right, there you go.